guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. I'm Frank, and today I want to teach you how to make Rengoku's katana from the anime and manga Demonslayer.
Tasty!
However, it's not going to be this particular katana. This is a real metal katana I got off of Amazon. It's about 50 bucks and it looks okay. However, it's not convention safe because it's real metal. If you've ever been to a Comic-Con or a convention, you know they don't typically allow real metal weaponry into the event. So what do? We 3D print and make our own. In this video, I'm going to take you through the whole process of recreating this katana and making it look as nice as possible. However, if you want my full opinion and review on this katana, make sure you subscribe to the second channel, Frankly Reviewed. So let's get started with this build, and if I'm being honest, I think I can make it look better than this. Like any good 3D print, we need to start with good 3D files. Now, in certain cases, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, paying for files doesn't always mean you're going to get good files. Thingiverse, Stangs, even My Mini Factory and Colts 3D have a cavalcade of beautiful free 3D files. You just need to know when to look and where to look. Granted, you're probably not going to get a really great Iron Man suit STL for absolutely free, but when it comes to anime things and fan service and manga and video games, there are a lot of really dedicated fans out there who just like modeling. Case in point, this beautiful katana by Dylan 3D Print. This was one of the most accurate katanas I was able to find, and it's free. Better yet to being free, he's already gone and separated the parts and made them optimal for printing. Now, I've gone into Cura here and laid out all the parts so you have a better idea of what they look like. And you can see I've gone and cut the blade into separate STL files. Cutting up a really long print is super easy to do in Mesh Mixer. I have a tutorial and I'll make sure to link that down below. I don't want to cover it in this video. That's for another time. What cutting up STL files gives you the freedom to do is print really long things on small printers. This file and sword is small enough to print on something like an Ender 3. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to print this on a small printer and then fuse the blade together, make it all nice and seamless and smooth, piece it all together, paint it, and make it look real fancy. Now, I've in particular gone and cut the blade into 4 sections that fit standing vertically on an Ender 3. Now, you can cut these however you want, or you can get a CR30 belt printer and print it in one shot. When it comes to the really small detailed parts, like the hilts and the caps, I'm going to resin print these for the absolute best quality. Now, you by no means need to do this. These are actually pretty simple files, and you could crank up the quality on Cura or Prusa Slicer and get some really good results out of it. You'll just have to increase your printing time. When it comes to resin printing, you can print stuff rather fast and get, well, near flawless quality. So I wanted to go that route, but again, these parts are small enough to do on an Ender 3. So grab the files, look over them, cut them, slice them, use however much filament you feel is necessary. I in particular like doing swords and katanas like this anywhere from 10 to 15%. They don't need to be solid plastic. You want them a little light because you don't want them to be so heavy that the end of the blade is what causes the rest of it to snap off. So I have good luck with that. Usually I'll do the handle and the lower parts of the blade at a higher infill, 15 to 20%, and as you get near the end of the blade, I'll start lowering it to 5 to 10% to make it lighter, and this way the weight's distributed kind of nice across the katana or whatever sword I'm making. And trust me, if I'm speaking from experience, I've made quite a few large blades. Also, hot tip, if you're printing long, tall blades and parts like this, lower your print speed. I know everybody wants instant gratification and you want the print to finish as quickly as possible, but the longer you can make the print take and the better quality you can extract from the printer, the less cleanup and post-processing you have to do. So take your time, get the best possible quality you can, and let's get these parts printed. Now, unlike FDM plastic prints, resin printing does require much more post-processing cleanup in terms of getting it ready to be painted. Though I don't have to sand it and make it all smooth, I do need to wash and cure it and make sure the resin printed nice. So it's a different step, takes a little bit longer, but the results speak for themselves. Everything comes out beautiful and smooth. With the whole blade printed, now we have to fuse everything together. When fusing parts, especially when you're using super glue to fuse 3D printed parts together, sand the joints, sand the spots that are going to be connected to rough them up a little bit. Put a little bit of super glue. I'm not using a lot. I'm only using this for alignment. This is a 2-part cyanoacrylite glue and it cures instantly and it's great for quick assemblies. From there, I'm gonna go along the blade and PLA weld it together with a hot soldering iron. Do this in a well-ventilated area, wear a respirator, refrigerator, don't breathe this stuff in, especially if it's going to be touching super glue. It will make you go blind, so please be careful. Now in PLA welding, you can be as clean or messy as you want, and it depends on the surface. This is gonna be a perfectly smooth, flat katana that I'm gonna spend time sanding down. So I'm okay being a little messier with my weld because I'm gonna go over it with sandpaper. But I'm looking for really good surface penetration to hold the print together nice because it is such a long print. So take your time with this, and if it comes out a little, wonky, you can sand it down. And there we go, the blades all fused together in one piece. Wait, that's a different anime.
My printer's dimensional accuracy isn't quite the best. What that means is if something's meant to print, I don't know, 50 millimeters thick, maybe my printer over extrudes a little bit. I haven't calibrated E-steps. Typically, I don't have any issues with this. Well, this is where this comes into a problem. There, in the handle here is a hole where the full tang of the blade is supposed to slide down in there. That wasn't happening. Now, I could go and print the handle scaled up a little bit more, print the tang a little bit skinnier, whatever. Well, fact of the matter is, I couldn't get it down into the hole. That's what she said. And eventually, it snapped off. That's fine though, because once even this little bit of the blade is down in there, it's more than strong enough, and it's gonna be fused together anyway. A good amount of epoxy, glue, and even a little bit of like the soldering iron kind of stuck down there before I slide the blade in is totally fine. It's mostly a display piece anyway. If I was to go and remake this though, I might scale the handle up maybe 2% to help with the dimensional accuracy. This way it slides in. Aside from that, things are going great. The two resin bits fit perfectly over the handle here. Now they do come off, but there's no reason to take them off. I'm gonna probably paint them with it, but these will polish up and shine up much, much nicer. I printed this handle in white because, well, the handle's white. So this is going swimmingly, and it was a good call to print this in resin, but again, that dimensional accuracy problem. I wasn't able to slide this all the way up the tang of the blade. I took a Dremel and just kind of wallowed out the hole a little bit more, and now this slides perfectly right up the side of the blade, and it looks great. This thing's gonna be beautiful. Once that's all there, you slide the blade in, and then there is the sword complete. Now it's time to clean it up, start sanding it, filling in all the weld spots, but I think Kyojuro would be proud.
At this point in the priming and sanding stage, this is where your prep work counts. Now you can see here that these resin prints came out already beautifully smooth, and this is a light coat of Duplicolor sandable red primer, not even filler primer. So these are coming out nice and smooth. I'm taking my time with a higher grit sandpaper, but a majority of the work needs to be done on the blade. I need to get rid of some of the layer lines. I need to sand down the fusion points I made. I want this blade to be nice, smooth, and glossy, and I want it to look like real metal. So I'm gonna put the most work into the blade.
Now I'm trying something a little bit different here. I'm not just using my palm sander and just flattening this out. I am using some Bondo glazing putty. Now this isn't normal Bondo that you would mix up in a two-part. This stuff cures in a few minutes and it sands beautifully. It's basically just like wood filler, just a little more expensive, but a little more durable. So I've been covering the blade in it and sanding it down while using some pretty high grit sandpapers, and it's getting pretty smooth. You're gonna do this in conjunction with priming back and forth until everything looks nice and smooth, and I'm really happy with how this is coming out so far. The only thing you have to be careful of are the little details right here, and as I'm sanding, I'm not going too hard over the details, and then I'm taking a little wire brush and just cleaning out some of the dust that gets stuck inside of it just to make sure that I don't paint over it, because if there's dust in there and then you spray paint over it, you're gonna lock that dust in there and build it up too high. So we're gonna keep at this, getting this nice and smooth, and I'm gonna finish it off with a gloss black base coat, and then we're gonna move into our colors. Now with everything primed and sand to a sufficient level, I'm gonna start the color process. For the parts that I want to be a nice metallic red and a metallic orange to really accentuate the accents on the sword to make them look as real as possible, I'm gonna be using a Rust-Oleum metallic chrome. This stuff in particular covers anything. I'm not using a black base coat to pull out the chrome. This stuff just covers, and this comes from experience of using it over time. Other chromes and paints are going to need different base coats, but all of the parts I'm going to be painting in the metal cast, I'm going to hit with this chrome to get them nice and smooth, and you can already see how nice and shiny these are coming out. And again, that's prep work. Chrome and metallic paints highlight layer lines. Skip out on sanding and priming, it's gonna show in this stage. Just look how shiny that is. I'm gonna be using a mix of the orange metal cast and the red metal cast. When using metal cast paints from Duplicolor, take your time, make sure the base chrome coat is
nice and dry. I'd give it a couple days to dry, and you do light coats. This paint loves to run, and I actually use that to an effect later when painting the blade. As for these orange accents and highlights, I want these to come out nice and uniform. All right, before we jump into more of the video, I want to talk about the blade itself. Now, this is the metal blade off of Amazon, and I want to talk about the flames in particular. Now, I did post a few pictures while I was working on it on Instagram, and a lot of people asked if I was going to be using a vinyl cutter or a Cricut and printing out a pattern and, you know, tracing it onto this. Fire is random, and I think we owe it to Kyojuro to put that into his primary weapon. I can look at this blade directly from Amazon, and I can see the repeating pattern on this. If we actually look at this big flame here, it's here, and then there, and then there, and then there. So this pattern's only a few inches long, and it's already repeating. And once I noticed it, I can't unnotice it. I want this to be chaotic and random, so I'm gonna do all this by hand. And I think that's just gonna mean so much more to the finished product. Some of you weebs might recognize this little guy. I'm not gonna say what it is. I want you guys to leave some comments down below guessing what sword this is. I've actually never made a video on it. The chrome on this is the same chrome I was using on the handles and the details and accents. This is also the same chrome I'm gonna be using on the blade. However, in order to get a good chrome like this, typically you need a nice gloss black base coat. This is where things like experimenting and testing your paints is absolutely crucial, because if you just trust the can, sometimes it's not going to really work to your benefit. Read the can, follow the instructions, but results will sometimes vary, so you need to be careful when testing these things out. Take my suit over here for example. This had to be painted in a very specific way. The red and the gunmetal went on after the gold because the gold is a good base coat for the metal cast red. The first thing you need to do for a nice metallic finish on a blade is typically a nice gloss black base coat. So as you're about to see, I'm gonna do the entire blade in that nice gloss black, make sure there's no imperfections, and then we're gonna move on to making those flames. After I gave that gloss black base coat plenty of time to dry, I took some yellow frog tape. This is a very low tack paint safe tape that really helps when you're doing fine details. It cuts really good. Use a good X-Acto knife or razor. Don't use the dull, janky one you've been using for months. This needs a little bit of precision. I'm taking my time. I'm trying to do the flames as random as possible, all by hand. It took a little while, but it was so worth it. After that came the painstaking, meticulous act of then removing all of the cuts and the tape I didn't want on there. Now keep in mind, I'm covering the gloss black because this is the black part of the Nichirin sword I want to leave unpainted, or in this case, not make metallic red. From there, I went and sprayed the entire blade chrome again because this is my base coat for my metal cast duplicolor red. Now that yellow frog tape is covering up the bottom of the blade, so that's gonna stay black, but now I'm gonna go over the chrome with very light coats of that metal cast red. You'll notice here I'm going actually pretty heavy with this metal cast. You can even see it running and dripping in the video. Now again, this was a plan. This is fire. It shouldn't be a uniform color, and I wanted it to drip and coagulate a little bit in certain areas of the tape to give it an ununiform look. So one thing I completely forgot to film and talk about was how I made the handle itself and got this nice white wrap. This is just a white pillowcase I cut up into strips, wrapped it around it, threw a little bit of dirt on it, and called it a day. It's a katana. You're gonna be holding it, it's gonna get a little stained. And some of you have probably noticed by now that the blade itself looks a little bit different. Unfortunately, after I'd filmed those fire shots, the sword snapped. I was having a little too much fun with the sword, and it snapped. There was a small line of under extrusion I didn't see, and that was a weak point. Now, this is an obvious pro-con situation of making something completely out of plastic. Now, on some swords and props, you can run metal rods through them. However, that might go off in a metal detector, and it won't let you into the con. Now, there are obviously different ways to print this, different materials to use, and different ways to strengthen it, but all in all, it's still gonna be kind of brittle, and you have to be careful with it. In the case of this katana, when I was trying to repair it and put tape around it so the super glue would hold better, when I took the tape off, it peeled some of the red metal cast off. So I embraced the failure, I went and stripped a little bit more of it off, I made it look more battle damaged and worn. Again, it's a weapon of war, it's going to get damaged, and I kinda like how it looks now. With all that said and done, I'm really proud of how this katana came out. It's gonna look great on the wall, and honestly, I think it came out a lot better looking than the Amazon one. I'd really like to know what you guys think, so leave a comment down below. And if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I have a lot more videos coming out, and if you're a Demonslayer fan, you're gonna appreciate them. They're gonna be pretty flashy. That's a wrap for this video, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. You have a good day.